At 03:40 hours local time, a fully loaded freight convoy accelerated through one of the remaining remote single-track choke points along the Trans-Siberian Railway, the Iron Artery, serving as the primary munitions corridor for Russian frontline forces, thousands of kilometers from the Ukrainian border. The train's crew, transporting hundreds of tons of North Korean-supplied ordnance, remained unaware. Only minutes remained before a covert Ukrainian strike team would execute an assault capable of destabilizing the entire logistics operation. The Special Operations Unit had spent months infiltrating deeper into Russian territory than strategists believed feasible, executing a high-stakes mission through frozen taiga, evading biometric detection Russian EW systems and rotating patrols, culminating in these critical final moments in darkness. Ahead of the convoy, specialty incendiary devices had been positioned, engineered to ignite brighter than daylight, generating temperatures sufficient to liquefy steel, capable of severing rails like a blowtorch through butter. During mission planning, command assessed the unit could not infiltrate via Russia's western perimeter, where all crossing points featured biometric screening, instead utilizing a carefully established covert network of regional operatives and sympathizers. They initially traversed through Kazakhstan, then Mongolia, ultimately entering Russia's Far East, an opportunity exploiting surveillance gaps that existed solely because Moscow never anticipated anyone would attempt such an audacious operation. The team commander had analyzed the Trans-Siberian Railway for months, every maintenance protocol, every security patrol rotation, every vulnerable junction where ammunition flowed toward the combat zone. He had identified a vast, isolated sector near Khabarovsk as the optimal target, a single-track bottleneck through which every train from Vladivostok to Moscow must transit, yet reaching the objective required traversing 3 time zones of Russian territory. Undetected, a near impossible undertaking, despite command having invested considerable time, establishing safe houses for operators to recuperate and resupply along designated infiltration corridors. The operators' first critical juncture occurred at the Mongolian-Russian frontier. FSB personnel were conducting enhanced biometric screening, fingerprint analysis, and facial recognition against databases, technology they anticipated as possible. But absent from intelligence briefings for this sector, the team observed a Ukrainian businessman being detained. His biometric data appeared non-matching. The individual vanished with 2 guards. He was never observed returning. Decision point crossed legally and risk identical consequences, or detour through approximately 25 kilometers of taiga at -35 Celsius before resuming their route. They selected the cold, but this created new complications. Every electronic device they were transporting, GPS units, detonators, timing circuits were all rated to approximately -20 pi at -35 along the alternate route. Lithium batteries depleted within hours. Circuit boards fractured, LCD displays froze solid. To maintain functionality, they insulated devices with chemical heat packs, now requiring careful management of their reserves to preserve the mission's essential technology. Yet the extreme cold was merely the initial challenge. Intelligence revealed Russian electronic warfare units had deployed previously unidentified jammers along the railway corridor's choke points. The charges required GPS precise positioning to sever the rails at predetermined structural vulnerabilities. Without it, locating the exact surveyed positions in darkness required more time, elevating their exposure risk. The team leader activated a GPS navigation unit observing positions jump between coordinates nearly 200 kilometers apart. They transitioned to compass and map, manually traversing the wilderness, where every kilometer required 40 minutes rather than 15. Their operational window was narrow. Then, approaching the target, local authorities detained one operator at a routine checkpoint. Fortunately, Operator 3's cover identity withstood scrutiny. Barely the interrogation extended longer than anticipated, but their operative rejoined the unit. Time to reassess mission completion remained viable, though the margin for error had significantly contracted. The unit was now approaching the isolated junction near Khabarovsk, representing a strategic vulnerability analysis masterpiece. Here, the Trans-Siberian's dual tracks converged to a single line. For approximately 3 kilometers, the sole alternate was the BAM line, adding 1,400 kilometers of detour. A substantial delay through this remote sector. Russia utilized R-65 rails, 65 kilos of hardened steel per meter, engineered to withstand 25-ton axle loads in Siberian conditions. Yet steel possesses one critical weakness. At 370 degrees Celsius, it forfeits 90% of structural integrity. The Ukrainian team's incendiary devices generated sufficient heat to exploit this vulnerability. Once activated, the reaction becomes self-sustaining and impossible to suppress. But precision placement is critical. Rails experience maximum stress 2.4 meters before each junction, where wheels impact after crossing gaps. Position the charges there, and a multi-thousand-ton train traveling at 80 kilometers per hour completes the destruction. Its own momentum transforms cargo carrier into demolition force. The team needed to position 12 charges across 400 meters of track, each GPS synchronized to detonate simultaneously. Yet the jammers rendered remote detonation inoperative. They required a hardwired contingency, hundreds of meters of detonation cord that must remain undetected by track inspectors. Russian railway security operated predictable schedules. Foot patrols approximately every 6 hours. Inspection vehicles averaging every 12. Fuel, however, one crucial element existed. Maintenance crews operated Wednesday nights through Thursday mornings, creating 90-minute windows, where unexplained activity was less likely to generate alerts. This provided the team exactly one opportunity per week. Missing it meant waiting 7 additional days in hostile territory. The incendiary composition created another challenge. The reaction generated heat signatures and ultraviolet light, with flames visible from extreme distances. They had mere seconds from ignition before Russian surveillance detected the thermal signature. By that point, it needed to be irreversible. Fresh intelligence had intensified operational urgency. The next convoy was confirmed to be transporting an estimated 200 tons of North Korean ammunition, 152mm shells, grad rockets, mortar rounds neutralized them, could substantially degrade Russian artillery capability for weeks. But this meant the convoy was now a priority asset, which likely received additional security, random schedule modifications, and enhanced surveillance. The mission had evolved from tactical disruption into a potential strategic masterstroke. At 15 hours on November 13th, the strike team reached the objective through night vision optics. They identified an obstacle immediately. A Russian security patrol had halted 200 meters distant, engine idling, cigarette smoke visible in frozen air. The patrol was not scheduled for another 3 hours. The team lead's tactical assessment proceeded as follows. Option 1, abort. Attempt tomorrow, but the ammunition train transits at 03. 45 missing this window means months of effort wasted. Thousands more Ukrainian soldiers facing North Korean shells. Option 2, proceed regardless. Risk detection if compromised. The consequences are severe. He selected a third option. Deployed one operator to create a diversion 500 meters north, a controlled fire in an abandoned maintenance structure, sufficient to draw the patrol away. However, igniting a fire at -35 required accelerant. The odor would carry any investigation, would uncover evidence. They were exchanging future anonymity for present opportunity. The tactic succeeded. The patrol took the bait, racing toward the flames, providing them time. Yet whether it would suffice remained uncertain. Positioning 12 charges properly required up to 20 minutes. They would need to expedite and skip backup sensors. Every shortcut increased failure probability. The team exchanged glances. They all understood the calculation. They began placing charges. Minutes elapsed rapidly. 8 charges positioned. 4 remaining. The patrol remained in fire, but they had reported it. Reinforcements were inbound. 7 minutes later, 10 charges positioned. 2 remaining. The patrol began returning to their vehicle. 5 more minutes elapsed. 11 charges positioned. 1 remaining. The patrol was 400 meters from visual contact with the team closing. Then they detected it, the distant rumble of an approaching train. Running early, the ammunition cargo was ahead of schedule, advancing at 80 kilometers per hour through the darkness. At that velocity, it would reach the charges in several minutes. The patrol was now 300 meters from the site. The team confronted an equation without optimal solution. Complete the charges and face capture. Detonate now and miss the train. Withdraw and forfeit months of planning and execution. No favorable options at 03. 35 hours, the final charge was installed. Yet, the hardwired backup remained incomplete. Only 8 of 12 devices were connected. The train was several minutes out. The patrol 200 meters in closing. The charge is 3/4 operational. The team leader's hands worked frantically, splicing dead cord with fingers numbed by cold. Each connection required precision. 3 minutes, 30 seconds. The ground began trembling. 3,000 tons of steel advancing at 22 meters per second. 3 minutes. Then the patrol detected something. Their vehicle stopped to investigate. Russian communications on the radio. Unidentified personnel near the tracks. Armed response authorized. 9th charge connected to the core. The patrol was 100 meters from visual confirmation, advancing slowly, attempting to identify the threat just reported. Suddenly, the locomotive engineer's spotter detected them. Multiple figures in his FLR scope maneuvering near the tracks. That was not a security patrol. The engineer reached for the radio and initiated preliminary braking. But momentum cannot be negotiated. 10th charge connected. The patrol was 50 meters from visual contact. Weapons drawn, stalking, whatever was out there. 90 seconds until they were detected. 11th charge connected. The train was closing on the target zone. The patrol was even closer. 60 seconds remaining to relocate. Final charge connected. But now they faced a loaded sprint to achieve 400 meters distance, the minimum safe perimeter. 30 seconds, the train was too close to the first charge. At current deceleration, it would stop just past the target. The team reached a concrete culvert 300 meters distant. Not safe distance, but superior to open ground. Operator 2 gripped the detonator, observing the train's approach. Suddenly, the engineer observed the charges ignite. A brilliant white flash exploded with light and fire on the rail, sending violent vibrations through the compartment. And he immediately engaged the emergency light. His eyes widened with recognition. That arrived too late, all 12 charges had ignited simultaneously. The reaction was instant, unstoppable, inevitable. The charges burned through hardened steel like plasma and ice. The rails did not merely fracture, they liquefied. The locomotive struck the first gap at 52 kilometers per hour. The forward wheels dropped into the void. Metal screamed as the entire engine lurched violently. Tons of steel pitched forward. The coupling between locomotive and first car ruptured instantly. Behind it, 23 freight cars began derailing in sequence. The locomotive's sudden deceleration generated a compression wave, rippling backward through the train. The first car tipped sideways, its container ruptured, exposing the crates and reinforced containers inside. As they spilled out, some specialty stores ruptured, scattering 152mm shells across frozen terrain like scattered debris. The second car followed. Then the third ERE. Rockets were damaged in their crates as they tumbled repeatedly. Cases of mortar rounds scattered across ground. The ammunition designed to withstand rough handling remained stable, as modern artillery shells require specific conditions to discharge and are packaged to prevent unintended detonation. A train derailment does not necessarily trigger that, but the damage remained catastrophic nonetheless. The locomotive lay on its side, steam escaping from ruptured lines, with freight cars scattered across 400 meters of destroyed track. 200 tons of North Korean ammunition lay exposed to the elements, now rendered useless, undeliverable. The junction was completely obstructed. The charges had destroyed the rail so thoroughly that the entire multi-hundred-meter section required replacement. Russian emergency responders arrived to discover miraculously the train's crew had survived, but the evidence they discovered regarding what occurred defied every assumption about Ukrainian operational capability. The distinctive burn patterns, the precision placement, the complete destruction. This was not an accident. This was surgical. The remote section of track cannot be rebuilt rapidly. That bottleneck had handled a significant percentage of all freight between Vladivostok and Moscow. Rerouting requires adding 400 kilometers to every shipment. By diverting through the BAM line, consuming fuel Russia cannot spare, substantially delaying deliveries, and creating a logistical crisis for that typically lower capacity track. Yet the true victory was equally psychological. As it was logistical, Russia and North Korea had presumed their supply lines were invulnerable, protected by thousands of kilometers of Russian territory. That assumption lay crumpled in the frozen wreckage. Russian state media attributed a technical malfunction, citing their standard scheduled repairs and maintenance narrative. The footage captured by the Special Operations Team told another story, one that propaganda cannot conceal. The Trans-Siberian Railway will be repaired, and munitions will flow again. But the message has been delivered. Nowhere is beyond Ukraine's reach. No supply line is secure, and North Korea's ammunition, it now costs Russia far more than money. It costs them security. This sabotage operation demonstrates modern warfare is not solely about missiles and drones. Sometimes 4 operators with determination can achieve what 1,000 aircraft cannot, striking fear into the heart of an empire that believed its homeland was untouchable. Russia learned that night that every train, every bridge, every supply line is now a potential target, and there is no way to protect them all. Stay prepared, stay informed, subscribe for more.